So, what type of punishment should the person receive for doing this heinous crime? In my opinion, I think the death penalty wouldn't be just. I think that a life, because essentially what you need to do is you need to show anybody that is thinking about doing something like this what the consequences and accountability is for doing such actions. So, it is, in my opinion, that a lifelong, let's say the shooter is my age, 30 years old. If you give them 20 years of hell, and then, what, like, sure, you hold them for 20 years, and then you kill them, knowing for 20 years, hey, this is coming down, and you don't make it easy. You don't make you. I would put them out in public a lot, at least a couple times a week. Put them in a cage. Let the public come over and just tell this guy what a monster, absolute evil thing that this guy is, and the shame, the regret that, and now maybe that's how I would feel. I would feel shame and regret. Maybe this person is in such of a psychopath mentality that he would probably be flattered by the comments people gave him. I mean, just kind of thinking out loud here. I just think that, just getting him in there, putting him on trial, giving the evidence, this, that, the other, right to a speedy trial. It could be done in, 2, 3 months, and then boom, like a month later, execution. I just don't feel like, maybe I don't have the right answer, but I feel like they said that Utah still does have the death penalty, and I think that him sitting in jail getting his 3 hots in a cot, I don't know, and only having to suffer through that for a couple months and then boom, death. I feel like there's more that needs to be done. You got to think you're going to his kids are maybe 1 and 2 or 1 and 3. They still got all the way up until they're 18 growing up without a father. They're probably going to be, and God, please bless their souls, but I hope nobody even looks their direction and says anything to them ever. But off of the comments that I've seen, it's probably, I mean, they have 50, 70 years. Who knows how long they're going to live. My dad died when I was 8. And look at me. I mean, hey, look at how I turned out. Um been in and out of juvenile detention centers my whole life, living in foster care, this, that, the other, I'm, yeah. Hasn't been a great time. And then I lost my brother in 2022 and, you know, grew up with him and he pretty much knows the whole story. We were never really separated until we got older and moved apart and stuff, but I mean that was the last time I felt like this, honestly. Like I even watched the Trump thing happen in Butler, Pennsylvania. I don't know. I mean, I felt like this on 9/11, and every time that there's been something, like the Las Vegas shooting, and it's just like every time something like this happens, that just nothing makes sense, man. The conflicting stories. We haven't really had that many conflicting stories come out yet, but I don't know. I just feel like whoever did this, I don't know that the punishment will be justified for them. I really don't. Because we do have a thing here in America where our prisoners, we can't do cruel and unusual punishment. You know, they will have that type of right. So it probably will be the firing squad, and that's just sad to me. I mean, you know, an eye for an eye type deal. That'll pretty much, yeah. But to lose a leader like this, I had full faith in the next 10, 20 years this was going to be a guy that would be leading us in the right direction, doing positive things for the people that he led in the community. And it's like anybody that is speaking any type of, you know, common sense good stuff just ends up in the same exact situation. You know, look at Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. We're speaking like, and I've watched a lot of their stuff and a lot of their speeches. Did a good bit of research on them, and you know, a lot of the things that he was saying, in my opinion, to me specifically, my subjective experience, he made a lot of sense. This guy, the way he talks, you know, I don't agree on every single thing that he says, but a lot of it, I'm like, okay, that does make sense if you look at from that angle, at it from that angle. You know, I have a couple different angles that I see things. You know, it's like this. If you've ever played a video game, right, and you walk into a world, you know, there's like, you know, there's the fire area, you know, you got the mountain areas, which is like icy, the fire, it's hot, you know, or the water area, which it could be cold, or, you know, vice versa, or whatever. You, you, you have to have your gear loadouts and everything and think about these types of things. Hey, do I need like an anti-freeze potion with me? Do I need like something like water in my pack, extra water, because it's going to be hot in the hot area? And that's kind of like, you know, living in the cities or living in rural areas or even different parts of the cities, like the south side, the north side. Hey, if I'm going to the south side or west side or whatever, wherever it's bad, hey, I know I need to bring my Second Amendment with me because things can happen, right? And that's what I'm talking about at these angles. You know, you bring your loadout with you and act accordingly to what type of situations you're predominantly put in, you know? And that's why I feel like, you know, a lot of people see things a lot differently. Like, defund the police, you would see that on the north end or the hilltops, or, you know, like in real rich areas, defund them. You know, they're not doing anything. They're not solving any crimes, but like where I live at on the southwest side, I got two of them together that are great. But hey, you know, we need more police, because I see when I walk outside, I'm working on my car, you know, I'm seeing 16, 18-year-olds with freaking guns, you know, whatever else. I've seen a lot of shit out there, and I'm like, oh man, you know, my life is a lot subjectively different than somebody that of living on the north side in the hilltops, you know, mansions, securities, gated communities, this, that, the third. My cars get broken into. They're probably like, oh, I leave my door unlocked, you know, every day. And it's just, that's why I think a lot differently than some other people do. And I feel like this guy has seen a lot of different angles, lived in a lot of different communities, actually went out, talked to people, gathered information, and that's why I see a lot of things on different ways like this guy has, because I've lived in, you know, League City, Texas. If you don't know where that is, like, Google it. It's a pretty nice area. You know, I've lived in 5th Ward, Houston. I've lived in Columbus, Ohio. I live in Canton, Ohio. I've lived in Uricksville, Ohio. You know, I've lived in great areas. I have lived in very shitty areas. And I've seen completely polarizing sides. And, that's why I think a lot of people feel so compassionately about the way they think, because they've just been in a bubble their whole lives. And when you get out of that bubble, and it's not comfortable getting out of that bubble in any way, but you go there and you start seeing a lot of different stuff, and you're like, oh, wow, this type of stuff is starting to make sense. And another point I want to bring up is, older people, I'm only 30. I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, probably more than a lot of people in their 50s have seen, or 60s. Hell, probably even 70s. But, I am starting to perceive things in my life to where I'm just like, oh, this is all starting to make sense. From 2020 to 2025, this hyperinflation that we've seen. I used to make fun of my grandma for her her complaining, yelling, bitching, whatever you want to say about the gas prices, or the price of milk and eggs and butter and this, that, the third, because, she's seen stuff that I haven't. And now going through this economic crisis, in which I believe we are in the worst socioeconomic crisis that America's ever seen. Statistically, if you run the numbers for inflation calculators through, just for an example, federal minimum wage in 2009 was $7.25, and guess what it is today? In a lot of areas, federal minimum is $7.25, and things have quadrupled at least since then. So technically, right now, if you're making like 28, I forget what the math is. Let me pull up the calculator here. I'm not good at math. Calculator. There we go. 7.25, and things have multiplied by 4. $29 an hour. $29 an hour. If you're making that right now, you're making $7.25 in 2009. Just saying. And me, I'm locked into my house and everything. So I know it's not a lot. I put a lot of money down and everything else and blah blah blah. So my monthly mortgage is like $565.50, I believe. So, or $564.50 or something like that. It's really not a lot of money. I put a lot of money down. The house was built in 1913. I'm in the bubble. You know what I mean? And I'm locked in. So from here on out, as we make more and more and more and more and more money, because we will make more and more and more and more money as inflation continues, this house technically gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, because it's locked in that bubble. So then I'm buying a piece of property, which I'm going to move out of, rent this house out, use that cash flow to pay for my diesel fuel and everything else for the farm and everything else that I'm going to be doing. So I'm pretty much, my wife and I, we have set everything up to where we're good. But I can understand why I'm still struggling every single day. Okay. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know. I just went on a complete tangent. But I believe this thing right here, to me, it does not feel right. Everything about this that has come out so far kind of gives me some Butler, PA vibes. When I've shot a lot of rifles, okay? I don't know if I'm able to do this or not, but I'm going to. Damn it. Oh, let me see if I can't fall. This right here is a firearm. That's what this is. It's chambered in 5.56. It's the Sons of Liberty Soul Snatcher. Did a little bit of work to it and whatever. Did some internal work, a lot of other things. I just have red dot, home defense type deal, whatever, okay? I have a SFAR in 308. Okay, that's a little jump up. It's like an AR-10 style platform. It's the same platform as that, but chambered in 308. It's actually lighter than that one. But what I'm trying to get at here is that thing's in 308. I believe this rifle that was used was probably a 30 caliber projectile. That's what it looks like to me. And I'm no expert or anything, but that's just what I believe. And for this person to take that shot, okay, so I just can't ever get my mind together. I should probably write a script for videos and stuff. But what I'm trying to get at is that 308 caliber that my other rifle is chambered in kicks like a horse compared to that 5.56. Okay? And when you shoot a rifle, okay, I'm guilty of this. It's called recoil anticipation, right? When you shoot a gun, it kicks back to you, okay? And a lot of people anticipate that recoil. It's more common in handguns, but if you're shooting the gun, sometimes I pull shots because I'm anticipating the recoil, so I go, forward just a hair, and I'm hitting the target way low. All right? And for this guy, and I probably have, I don't know, maybe 10, 20,000 rounds I've shot through rifles in my life. Maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. I'm just giving a guesstimate number. I'm not, like I said, a professional. I just hunt a lot and whatever else, and cool. I'm like, it's a good hobby, I feel, and I like it, and it's fun for me. But for him to be that confident that he would bring what I think is a bolt action rifle, that it doesn't matter if it was bolt or semi or whatever, but first shot, one kill. If you have the rifle canted, cell phone, okay? This is the rifle. It might not look like that to you. Maybe my camera isn't straight, but this looks pretty straight to me. At 200 yards, if you cant this a little bit, the barrel is pointing up to get to your optic that sits up here. You got to bring them together like this, okay? Now we're going like this. If you cant it, what is it doing? It's pointing away. It's pointing up. So if you have it canted at 200 yards, how far do you think you're going to be off? Plus, you're going to have MOA. MOA of the barrel will allow the rifle, it's the accuracy of it. It's minute of angle at 100 yards. So if it's a 1/2 inch MOA, that's 1/2 of an inch at 300 or 100 yards. Now, when you go out and you double the distance at 200, it's 1 inch. Okay? So if that's a 2 MOA rifle that he's using, you're already looking at 2 inch. Plus, if it's canted a little bit, you're looking at 3, 4. Plus, you got wind. I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into it. Did he buy match grade ammo? That's another thing I wanted to talk about. There's different type of projectiles that you can use to be effective on a target. We'll just put it that way. There's bowtail hollow points. Okay? That when I'm hunting, that's what I use because they have a hole in the center, and when it smacks that target, it expands rapidly. It's like, let's say it's a .308, right? That's 30 caliber. That's .308 inches, I believe. And when that tip flattens, it expands. I wouldn't say double the size, but it gets a lot bigger. Like, let's say it's 0.5, half an inch, instead of 0.3. It's more effective. You're going to have more tissue damage. Okay? If that was a 30 caliber rifle, and if that was hitting him directly in the neck, which I don't believe it was aimed directly at his neck, but maybe, like I said, the recoil anticipation, he shot, he was aiming at head, recoil anticipation, a little bit down, maybe it hit him in the neck, okay? Could be. But if that was the whole thing, then him using a regular full metal jacket round, match grade round, maybe. Because I have shot a hog with just, it wasn't right for me to do it, but they're a nuisance in Texas. I have shot a hog with, and I never did it again, with a full metal jacket 308. And why, you might ask yourself, why will you never do that again? The hog ran. It didn't do enough damage to eliminate the target immediately. Because it's just a little pencil hole at 0.308 inches, little hole that just went through and through. I could barely even find the exit wound because it just went right through. There was no expansion, no nothing. It was just a little pencil hole. It literally looked like you just put a pencil and just put it all the way through. Alright? So, potentially, maybe. But, if this was, as people are claiming, a expert or a hitman that did this, it is in my belief that they would not use a full metal jacket. They would use a round that would be designed to be effective on targets for as much destruction as possible. Maybe, in my opinion, they would use a hollow point. I will be right back. Just skip forward if you're watching this to where you see me again. Hold on. Okay, I apologize. I just wanted to come up and give some demonstrations on what I'm talking about here. I got some bullets. They're both in 308, okay? I apologize. Alright, I just wanted to make sure I was being correct. You know, there is 7.62, there's 308. Who cares? Maybe I can get that to focus in. Do you see the difference between this one and this one? This one is an FMJ, okay? That's a full metal jacket. Alright? This one is a hollow point. This one is for predator varmint hunting. This is going to do the most damage. If someone was to be a professional, they would be using this. Okay? Now, with that being said, I know I probably say that a lot or something. Also, to me, I only have the audio off. It's like you guys listening to this mic. It probably sounds terrible, okay? But I apologize. I don't have a lot of money for nice stuff gear, whatever, to make videos. But the audio coming off of a cell phone, like, I'm sure here soon somebody's going to refine it and everything else. But and like I said, the audio on these aren't that great and everything else. But off of listening to the shot and everything, I do not believe that it was suppressed. That's where I'm getting these, like, conflicting thinking. Like, if I was to go do this, sure, the bolt action's fine. You're going to get a little more velocity because you don't have to cycle the action back and use the extra gases. All that, it's like it's a closed barrel because that bolt is going to stay closed. You're getting more velocity, a little bit, not much, but a little bit more gas. Technically, it's a little more reliable in my opinion, and everything else, accuracy-wise. And another thing is when you slam that round into the chamber, you're going to deface that bullet a little bit with closing that block like on an AR-style semi-automatic rifle. As far as loading it in all the way and then just closing it, or just, using the bolt action itself to grab the round from an internal magazine or whatever, is going to be a lot more forgiving on the surface of that bullet and not deface it or deform it as much as a semi-auto rifle potentially can. It doesn't always do that, but it can. Okay? I don't know. I don't know if it was suppressed. I wasn't there. If it was suppressed, then I believe this probably was a professional person. That's just my thinking. If I was to gonna go do it, I would more than likely have a suppressed rifle or a suppressor on the rifle. And, there's different suppressors. There's a whole lot of different things that go into it, blah, 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 and whatever else. But from the vantage point and everything, and, like, he got away, I don't really know. The distraction with the other people, it seemed like, it just, none of this seems, it just, I don't know. It seems like the person obviously knew what they were doing. Like, I'm just thinking of myself, if I were to decide, hey, I want to go do something really cruel to somebody, I really honestly don't think I could, but I wouldn't even know where to begin. I know a lot. But honestly, I wouldn't even know where to begin, which makes me believe that either one, he or she has the training, or two, somebody is telling these people how to do this process and do it effectively. And, the whole thing with aiming, I know I have a pencil neck and everything, but I would estimate, hear me out, I would estimate this guy's neck 7-8 inches wide. Just ballpark estimate. 7-8 inches wide, right? His head, (10 to 12 inches wide. Okay? You're going to have a bigger target on his head. Why the neck? That's what I don't really understand here. And that's... Okay, so when you go to shoot a gun, okay, let me just come out here and say this. When you go to shoot a gun, you got to take a whole lot of things into consideration. The temperature. the temperature outside is going to affect it greatly. Powder burn, everything else. How much pressure is going to be in that rifle. A whole bunch of different stuff. Just on the temperature alone. By elevation. Elevation, how high you're up you are. When you drive a car high up in the mountains, is it different than when you're on standard ground or standard elevation or sea level? Absolutely it is. Why do you think that is? Because shit burns differently at different oxygen levels and pressures. So that you got to take that in mind. You got to take the wind in mind. For this guy to get it in the first shot, he's better than me. And like I said, I would guesstimate comfortably 10,000 rounds just in rifles. Rifle shooting and pistol shooting, in my opinion, are two different ballparks. Absolutely two different ballparks. But, so, let's say he lives 500 miles away. Maybe he's a local, I don't know. But more than likely not a local. So, when he goes to the range where he's at, he is going to have to chamber his gun, make sure, zero it, probably get some dope on it. Dope means data on previous engagements, okay? So, data on previous engagements is, hey, I'm getting, and you can chronograph your rounds to make sure you have a standard deviation between the speeds. So muzzle velocity is measured in feet per second. Okay? So you're going to measure these things on these certain rounds that you have, right? But like I said before, elevation, the temperatures, everything else is going to change that when you go somewhere else and start shooting. That's why they have these apps on your phone for dope on rifles. And then you have another thing. I think it's called CB. I knew what it. I know what it is. I just forget the terminology on it. So CB on cartridges. What is that? What is that? What is that? I forget. Ballistics. Something ballistics. CB. Ballistic coefficient. That's what it is. So, it depends on the intended use of the specific. However, the highest BC bullets, probably 6.5 Creedmoor, or I think 6mm arc is really good. But you could get into that and start reading a whole bunch on that. Okay, for long range shooting, it is recommended to compare BCs to see which bullet. That's pretty much where the bullet's going to fly flatter, longer. Okay. So, there's that you look into. There's a whole bunch of things. At 200 yards, most people sight in a gun and get a zero at 100 yards. Okay? So, more than likely, this person sighted their gun in at 100 yards somewhere. Put all this stuff, they're chronographing their shots. If you're going to go do all this, you're probably going to be educated enough to do all this. You're going to chronograph your shots. You're going to see what type of muzzle velocity deviations you have. You're going to, all this other shit. You're going to sight it in, use the same ammo, blah, 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 you're going to use it at the range when you're sighting in. You're going to use it when you go to do the deed. But, like I said, when you go all the way to your next destination where you're going to do this act at, you're going to have elevation changes. You're going to have wind changes. You're going to have temperature changes. And plus, shooting at certain angles, that takes it in effect. We're not like Coriolis, Borealis, or whatever the hell it's called, where like you got to adjust you don't need to do all that at that range. But it's still For them to get, I believe, if it is a neck shot, this person was aiming for center mass. I mean, I seen that he was bleeding from the neck and everything, but I believe that person was aiming for center mass. And some things changed, and he got better either velocity or BC from that angle to where it went higher. Maybe he sighted it in with a different bullet type. Because, like these ones, there's also what you got to look into this is the grain. What grain are you using? So, this is 130 grain on the hollow points because they hollow the point out of it, okay? You're going to get less mass, which is going to speed up the projectile a little bit. So, this feet per second is probably going to be higher than, I believe this is 150, 160 grain. I'm not sure. I didn't leave the box with it. I should have. This is 130 grain. What's the feet per second here? 3050 at muzzle. 100 yards. 2,690. At 200 yards, 2,360. So we're losing 700 feet per second, 600 feet per second at 200 yards on this. So potentially, did he run something like this to zero it in with, and then shot with something like this, and that changed the trajectory of where that bullet was going to go if he was aiming center mass? Could be. But just the neck shot thing to me is freaking weird. And that's why I said what I said in that one video, to where I was like, dude, it looked like to me, because of the way his shirt moved and everything else, to where he has some type of plate armor. And then it just ricocheted up, hit his neck. That's why I said what I said on that. Or could it be, different bullets? I don't know. I just don't feel like, I just don't feel like somebody was aiming for the neck. That makes absolutely no sense at 200 yards. When you're looking down this sight, okay, so there's also another thing you could take into consideration. I don't know if you guys will be able to see. Oh, there's a red dot right in that sight. I'm sure you see it. Okay? That sight right there, I believe it's 2 MOA. Meaning, if you have a 2-inch dot at 100 yards, you can cover that sight, that dot with the dot, and you won't be able to see 2 inches. That's at 100. 200 yards, that's 4 inches. How big is his, you know what I mean? How wide is his neck? So if you're using like even a 2 MOA dot with a magnifier or whatever else, I don't see it. I don't see it. And same goes for, in my opinion, on the scopes that I have subjectively used. I don't know. There's first focal plane, there's second focal plane, and I'm not too well versed and educated and all that, but one gets bigger, or as you zoom in, it zooms in with it, or the other one, you zoom in and it just stays, but you're still looking at like a 2 MOA on that. You can't convince me that person aimed at his jugular. There's no way. If anybody has shot and been out in the field, went out on these ranges, public ranges, private ranges, whatever. If you actually have been around it and done it, there's no way somebody's aiming for the jugular. At 200 yards, get out of here. If you're running like a Night Force or a, what is that? I had a brain fart. Starts with a Vortex, Arkin, or something like that. That's like 24 power. You can get a good bit of zoom on that. And with a precision enough rifle, my brother has a 6mm arc rifle, and that thing is comfortably quarter MOA. You're shooting a dime at 100 yards. Okay? Now, if somebody is working with somebody, that you're not going to go into Walmart and grab a Savage, 308 rifle bolt and do this shot and shoot him in the jugular. You're not doing that. And if you do that, you're practicing with that rifle. You got a lot of rounds through that rifle, and you got good glass on it. Okay? So I'm just trying to educate here a little bit on the things that I know. So you're not going to Walmart. You're not going to get your Savage 308 and throw in or I think most of them come with the scope. And those there's nothing wrong with the glass that's on those. That'll get you, your 150-yard buckshot. And you're going to hit within an area, it's going to be like probably 2 MOA-ish, depending on what ammo you're using. You got to find the right because when you shoot that round, your barrel has harmonics. It whips. You got to find a round that is leaving that barrel in a consistent way when it whips pretty much right and center every time. And there, like I said, there's a lot of things that go into this. I'm just sitting here just trying to babble on, but I believe that they had a pretty good rifle setup. If they were aiming for the jugular, they got probably a $5,000 rifle that's shooting quarter MOA. They got match grade ammo, and they got a freaking Night Force, a Vortex, Arkin. They got 24 power zoom. I think they even come to 30 now, or 4 to 50. I don't even know what the hell they got honestly anymore. I've used a couple different scopes in my day, and those, I will tell you, those Arkins are good. It's crystal clear glass. Like, you could sit at 100 yards, I could shoot this thing. My brother could be over beside me, and at 100 yards away in 5.56, you're shooting a tiny little 22 caliber hole. And he could tell me, hey, you're hitting here, you're hitting here, you're hitting here. He could spot with that glass. So either this guy is running like a $7,000-8,000 rifle, or something else is going on, man. That's after having a little bit longer time to get more information and facts and to think about it a little more. These are the conclusions I'm coming up with, okay? And it is very sad. But I don't know. I'm just throwing out speculation here on my thought process. My thought processes on what this guy was using, obviously I knew his intention, but I think, in my opinion, in every way, everything tells me that this guy knows what he's doing. Okay? Because if like I said, if you're going to Walmart and buying the Savage, man, and you go buy it off the shelf and then go try to climb on a building and do something like this, it's going to be like the Butler, PA thing. That's what that looks like. That's what that exactly looks like, the Butler, PA thing. Whatever you've seen there is a guy that doesn't know what the F is going on. And doesn't know all this stuff that I'm talking about right here. And was like, oh, I'm smart. I could do this. Let me go to the range. Let me throw these bullets in here this week. And then I'll use these bullets next week. You know what I mean? Couldn't hit the fucking broadside of a barn type deal. Shot the freaking hydraulic hoses. Person in the crap. And sorry for the firefighter guy that lost his life, man. Corey, I'm really sorry that happened to you, brother. But that's what that looks like. And now, on this one, you have a polarizing, completely different freaking thing going on. Especially if it is intended to hit in the jugular. When you go hunting, you'll have these targets they sell. And it'll pretty much show the outline of the deer and everything or whatever. And they'll show you the heart-lungs type box. It'll give you a box where you hit at. And that's what you're aiming at. Because you want to put that thing down. You're not going to find a target they sell that has the freaking jugular on a deer. You know what I mean? You're not hitting it. You're not... 1 inch off this way... You're just blowing a hole through the esophagus. Could you bleed out? Yeah, probably. But is it going to be like that? No. You're 1 inch off this way. You're skimming them. You're not doing any damage. Contrary to popular belief, but if you just barely hit somebody with it's not going to do hardly nothing to you. It's going to be like big paper cut burn, whatever. It's not going to be crazy. But to hit that artery that's quarter, if not less, MOA, actually probably 1/8 MOA, at 200 yards, you ain't doing it. You're not... Yeah, it's long, okay, because it runs all the way up and down here, but... You got to think of how thin that thing is. And if you miss it, I'm sure people have recovered from that. Now, with that being said, you do have the spine in the middle. But I don't believe anybody in a high-stress situation or anything like that thinking, and that is somewhat semi-knowledgeable about firearms and all this stuff I was talking about is going to be like, I'm doing a neck shot. I'm climbing this building, I'm going to shoot him in the neck. No, they're going up there, okay, what is the highest probability of me incapacitating this individual right now? That is going to be center mass. That is the highest probability. And we don't know what the setup was on that. So we got to assume subpar rifle, just the Walmart, grabbing the Savage, 2 MOA rifle, subpar glass, just average stuff. That's what we have to assume, just average stuff. Because if we don't have any data on it, we just assume the median, the average. But that's conflicting because everybody says, "Hey, this looks like a paid professional," which does look like professional work. But why was he that far off? That's why I said, I'm just looping around to shit now. I'm just looping around to the same stuff. I don't know, man. I'm just putting this information out there. Do with it as you will. And I'm really sorry that this happened to our boy, Charlie Kirk. I apologize. But, go ahead, if you found anything interesting, start looking some stuff up online, And you'll see that at least 90% of the stuff that I said was true. At least. Because I somewhat know what I'm talking about here. Somewhat. Like I said, not a professional. And once you put all those things together, you can too draw a conclusion to what this was. And, yeah, I don't know. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to spend the rest of my day getting a hold of my loved ones and telling everybody, you know, not every day we come home type stuff, and we'll just all sit down and try to come up with a positive out of this terrible act. Try to just come up with something positive. But, you know, I'm sorry you have to see this video in these circumstances and everything, but condolences to the family and everything, and I'm out. Thank you for watching.